My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Samas, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Last Ball Drops. I am your host, Nick, and I am joined by the man whose dulcet Polish tones are the first thing I hear when I wake up in the morning, usually because I'm listening to the previous Last Ball Drops episode. It's Damien Coots. Damien, how are you doing?
Great. I'm wondering about that gesture you did at the very beginning. What was that supposed to be?
It's about how I usually open things.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, glad to be on here. Actually, yesterday I think I wasn't on Last Ball Drops, but indeed that's been mostly my activity for talking tennis this week. Not doing watch-alongs in the first week really, but these I definitely can and always are excited to.
Well, I had to make do with a bunch of American accents from yesterday's show, but oh well. No, they're all. Fortunately, was still pretty good content for the guys. So why don't we get started with wrapping up the draw? And before we kind of launch into maybe some of the bigger stories, Damien, what's your immediate reaction to the last ball that has dropped, which is Rune defeating Nava in a not too straightforward straight sets match, although it didn't seem to me that Rune was really that threatened a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think in terms of Holger, his main goal for the tournament is kind of to get to that fourth round where he would likely face Musetti without losing like too much of a, sweat and basically not losing too much energy. So I think today is kind of like job done in that sense. Emilio, of course, playing very well this season and getting that win against Van de Zandschulp, finally threatening to maybe break the top 100 again going forward. So I think he was definitely a dangerous opponent. And not to drop a set for Holger, it's just exactly what he wanted. He's had so many slams, including the Australian Open this year, where he's just going 5 in every single match, basically. And yeah, that eventually hurts him because even though for a while he's looking better physically than Yannick, in the end he is the one who collapses. So yeah, I think job's done is kind of like that kind of a win. Thoughts on what Nava could have done better? Not miss the volley set point or something like that. No, I think Emilio did perfectly fine. I mean, comparing to his recent slow clay performances, I think he was absolutely good. In backhand rallies, he was holding up so well against Holger, which is a surprise. But yeah, I mean, from Rune's perspective, has to be great to just get through 2 rounds, losing just 1 set, not waste too much energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think really helpful for Rune in that situation. And yeah, that missed set point, I think Navo could definitely tell that he was in the match and was frustrated he wasn't doing better. I still think even he had got that second set, I think Rune would have got sets 3 and 4. I didn't see this one going 5 with the way it's progressing. Who knows? Maybe if Navo got a bit confident, but Rune through and certainly showing that he is relatively healthy this Roland Garros. We'll see what happens if he's tested at all. Someone who is not so healthy, which is had a big impact in his loss today to Nuno Borges, is Casper Ruud. And probably the biggest upset of the day. Obviously understandable given the injury he was dealing with, apparently, which we had no idea about.
Yeah, if you guys saw me grimacing on the camera just a second ago, that was at the Mats Wilander, not quote, but what Jake brought us here, that he apparently said that Nava has no weapons, which is kind of the only thing Emilio has in many ways. But yeah, Casper, of course, it's probably the biggest story of the day, and not an upset anybody would have expected. Not that Nuno isn't dangerous, but he went 5, he had to come back against Jacquet in the opening round. And Casper has had that tremendous record at the French, obviously winning Madrid recently. But sometimes, I mean, we don't know things. We don't know everything. The official reason for his Geneva withdrawal was the knee issue. But, everybody just assumed that this was, I don't want to play Geneva. I've had a big Madrid-Rome run. Like, why would I need it? Just go to the French. Well, maybe that was also partially the case. But apparently this has been an underlying condition for Casper since at least Madrid. So yeah, that's something we couldn't really have known in previous matches. It wasn't showing up. It wasn't flaring up like that. Kudos to Nuno for playing a very good second set. Once Casper just kind of like stopped doing anything but looping high balls into the middle of the court, he obviously took over and like never let go. But yeah, easily could have been a match where Casper just like retires at the start of the third. It wouldn't really have changed all that much. It's not like he was winning games. It's not like he was threatening to win them. And yeah, compared to, of course, his last 3 years at the Red Round Garros, and honestly ever, right? I mean, he had all these third round runs before as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a disaster for a player who, like, his entire season is kind of centered on performing well at this very event.
Yeah, so that I think he's now dropping out the top 10 as a result, if I'm remembering correctly. Probably not, but not ideal situation for him. I'm very impressed if this was a problem around Madrid, that he obviously managed to win it in the way that he did. Toughed it out in that final against Draper. He definitely had some interesting things to say, I found, about sort of the way the schedule was working and how sort of feeling like he's being forced to play with injuries. I think I'm very much sympathetic that you don't push players. I don't think the tours should be pushing players beyond breaking point, but I also think that it's very difficult for me to believe that a player isn't managing some niggle at a tournament, given the nature of what they do week in, week out. They're always having to perform athletically. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Damien.
I mean, what Casper said is true, but there were a few spots in there where I was like, it's not really that big a deal. Like, for example, when he mentions the bonus pool, like he says something like, I don't know if you guys know that, but if you miss one mandatory event, you're going to get 25% less on your like year-end, bonus or something like that. Like, for a player like Casper Ruud, I don't think this should be enough motivation given, where he is in life financially. Let's say that. So in a way, I don't understand that argument, because, okay, yeah, they cut your 25% on like your bonus, sure. But in general, yeah, of course, so many events mandatory, maybe even more so the problem on the WTA side. Well, I mean, it's a tough balance between the organizers of the tournaments wanting to ensure that they have the best lineup possible, and of course, yeah, just the situation of the players. But yeah, we couldn't have known that that Casper had that injury, and that's what happened to him today.
Yeah, tough one for Casper to take. And now, obviously, the speculation is going to be whether he plays the grass season or not. That will, I think, it's going to depend on the knee. Obviously, it's not a part of the season that he relishes. I wouldn't be surprised if he just did Wimbledon, just to see.
That's what he does usually, anyway, right?
Yeah. So exactly, but I think. Yeah, you've got to try it right. There's been plenty of clay courters who have got one weird run at Wimbledon, and you've got to keep trying until you get your turn, I suppose. So we'll see what happens with Ruud and whether he's going to be involved in that. The other big upset that happened today, and was probably more of a genuine upset because it wasn't against a physically hampered opponent. Matteo Gigante has beaten Stefanos Tsitsipas in 4 sets. I only caught the end of the fourth, during which it looked like Steph was trying to salvage the match and stage a comeback. And Gigante, credit to him, was playing quite well to hold him off. But I think by that point, from what I gather, the damage had been done. So what was your take on that result, Damien? And did you see this coming?
Not really. I mean, Stefanos to me at this event wasn't really, like, nobody talked about him for one reason only, the fact that he was going to play Carlos in the 4th round. and that kind of like that issue still remained in my head. But having watched this, I'm not really sure if he pulls off the comeback. He beats Shelton in the third round. The main story, like regardless of whatever happened in the last few games, like it was still gonna be like a Pyrrhic victory. I think if he took it, just a complete shell of what he used to be as a player. And I was just mentioning that Casper had some tremendous records over the years at the French. Stefanos did the same. Like 2019, he lost to Stand, and 2 years in a row to Novak in 5 sets. Then, of course, Rune, but I would also not count that as a bad loss, even if at the time it was a big upset. And then the last 2 years to Alcaraz. And, everybody just assumed that this was going to be another one where he wins a few matches. He looks solid at Roland Garros, but then Alcaraz comes and, there's really not that much for Steph to do. Not to not even get there, especially for the forehand to look as weak as kind of like not confident as it was. Yeah, it's a shame. Obviously, a gigantic moment for Matteo Gigante. I think many times on the channel I've referred to him as a player who has all the tools really, but he just can't really piece them together. And hopefully this is also going to be another bit where that actually starts for him. I think the last couple of seasons he basically has 5 good events, and then he can just turn off for 4 months, and do nothing. Maybe this is where something starts happening for him. Maybe this is where the top 100 quest begins. 100 points from this event. Well, not even more, because 30 for qualifying as well. So 130. When Steph was pushing him in the last few games, obviously he responded so well on the breakpoints too, with the serving, with the drop shot at 30-40. So, kudos to him, but it's clear that in this case, the main story is Tsitsipas, and unfortunately we're coming back to all these the depressing thoughts that we had previously in the year. Kind of like that conversation we used to have with John from time to time, whether it's Tsitsipas or Medvedev that we should be more worried about right now. I think after the last couple of days, well, both of them have kind of got back into that conversation.
Yeah, it's kind of both equally at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So is it time that Tsitsipas committed to the Babolat, or is this problems deeper than that?
Maybe. I mean, as I think Vansh tweeted, I would like to know why. And, if the answer is something that he cannot overcome, then, it's not his fault. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's maybe mostly the thing. We would have to know why before we start that conversation, I suppose. But, there was that one spike, right, that he had, and that was right after switching the racket. Maybe that could have done something. Still, the bigger issue probably is the fact that he has all these horrible matchups against Alcaraz, Fils, Rune, and the likes, against all the youngsters, basically. Right now, even didn't get there. He lost to another, well, let's say relative youngster, but not as established, obviously.
Yeah, you're right. It's mainly his matchups with the previous generation. I think I saw some of the replies under Vanch's tweet suggesting, obviously with no source, but there was a couple of people who suggested that he told the Greek media that it was because he didn't feel like the new racket, the Wilson, would help him on clay, specifically, which is interesting. But yeah, you're right. The matchups, even if he hits through the ball a bit better, it still doesn't necessarily take away his weaknesses.
That's interesting, because when you had the stats from Dubai, Indian Wells, wasn't it the case that his backhand was just getting more RPMs and more pace, more depth, essentially?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
So that's interesting that he didn't think it would help on clay.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, maybe it's the way kind of. Yeah, I guess it's kind of, you've got to find it from the horse's mouth, right? So if anyone has any links to the Greek interview, let us know, where he said that, allegedly. So, but yeah, just on Gigante, obviously, as you say, sounds like super inconsistent player, but with all the right tools. And today was a day where he showed them. So I guess it's kind of is it time to just pay more attention? Is he going to get a lot of scrutiny for his results now? It's okay, you've beaten Tsitsipas. Can you start winning some more challenges, please?
In a way, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you remember what was happening with Zdenek Kolarz when he had that match against Tsitsipas like 2 years ago. For the next month, basically, like there's, let's say, an increase of tenfold, and a tenfold increase of tweets about Zdenek Kolarz, and most of them were like, "Why isn't he winning matches? He played so well against Tsitsipas." So I wouldn't maybe go that far yet, but certainly at least for a while, some eyes will be on him. He's always been like a bit of a second tier Italian talent. Of course, that's not even like something bad because Italy just has the number of players coming up. Just today, somebody was asking me about Carboni, and I was like, Jesus, I have to first like start thinking, in my head, which one is it? There are so many of them around 19, 18 years of age. So yeah, obviously Gigante is like 2-3 years prior, maybe even 4. But yeah, I mean, definitely for at least a while, more people will be following his results.
Yeah, I agree. I certainly think that his name is going to be the subject of a lot of puns forever now. So, but yeah, great result for him. I think he is kind of the underdog hero of the day in Roland Garros. I mean, with all these upsets, I say all these upsets, Tsitsipas and Ruud going out. Let's be honest, though, to kind of use your words, it doesn't ultimately matter because Alcaraz is still in the draw and he was going to beat them both anyway. And he comes through in 4 sets against Marozsan. I did watch this one and it looked like Marozsan played well, played one good set, and then Alcaraz just had him the rest of the time.
Yeah, I think what we have in the ticker here, running at the bottom of the screen, that he survives a scare against Marozsan. That's very exaggerated. I mean, if this was a scare, I think I don't know. I probably get more scared just opening my fridge or opening the mirror in the bathroom, after all the horror movies I've watched. But anyway, yeah, obviously Marozsan is that kind of player where he's just gonna like go out and try to hit you off the court, try not to let you play your game. But it's going to be difficult to do it in the longer format, especially. So in a way, that match was kind of exactly like you would expect. And if the other 3 sets are like, what, 6-1, 6-2, 6-1 or something like that, then yeah, I mean, I definitely would not call it a scare. So yeah, I mean, it's just the kind of game Marozsan plays. He can definitely snatch a set from you, but still no worries about Alcaraz's chances to go deeper. In fact, the path is getting clearer, right? There's no Tsitsipas, there's no Mpechi Pericard. So if somebody was thinking that Alcaraz might be due for an early exit, it's not looking likely anymore. Casper Ruud is out as well. That's another one that was going to probably play him, right? So today is in fact not only Carlos's match, but just all the other results are also really suiting his chances to keep going.
Yeah, this is definitely making his life a lot easier. I'm looking in the drawer and yeah, there's only one name on there who could even, I'd say, irritate him on clay, but it's very different to when they've met on hard court, and that's Tommy Paul, who...
How about Khachanov, though?
Khachanov?
They just played and was very tight in Rome.
True. Yeah. Maybe a bit different over 5 compared to best of 3, but that is true. But Tommy Paul's the name I sort of immediately went to as being the higher ranked player and with more of that reputation, given there's more matches where he's pushed Alcaraz or beaten him. But Khachanov, yeah, he's got the ability and the stubbornness to just keep going with Alcaraz. And both Paul and Khachanov had scares today. Like, you could literally say they had scares. Like, Tommy Paul comes from 2 sets to love down against Martin Fucsovics. And I think I did see at one point, I think Fucsovics might have been up in the 4th. Maybe I was watching the scores. I wasn't watching the match, so it might have got a bit muddled with a different match there. But yeah, definitely 2 sets to love down. Got that bit right. But yeah, thoughts on the Tommy Paul comeback? Oh, so Fucsovics was serving for it. Yeah, he was serving for the match.
Was he really?
Were you watching that one, Damien?
From time to time. I didn't watch the entirety of it. Definitely not. I remember Tommy serving for the 4th set. and not getting it done. And then it was Tommy who came back again. Oh, so it was at 5-3. Okay, 5-3, 30-15. Okay, yeah, I definitely did not watch that game. Yeah, I mean, that's even more a shame than for Marton that he did that. Second time he lost 2 sets to love lead. Of course, the first one was against Sinner in Bonn, sort of, because me, John, and Mario were in Bonn then and watching that match. This one was different for sure because he kept having chances clearly until the 5th set. Whereas in that Sinner match in Australia, obviously it was like a beatdown after the first 2. Yeah, I think Tommy also had some random like small injury scares throughout the match. There was something with the ankle, and then later he said that he has an issue with lower abdomen, and that he's gonna play in the 3rd round, but that it's a thing, and that's also what was hurting him a little here. Fucsovics, yeah, so tough to play, but unfortunately for not the first time and not the second time, he comes up just short against someone big. He still had some obviously big upsets at the slams, even I think Medvedev here a few years back. But yeah, it's not really a great day for him. Tommy looking very ordinary through the first 2 rounds. So let's see if he even gets there. Indeed, there's Khachanov, whom we mentioned. There's Popyrin in that section too, right? I mean, right now they look like they could be beating Tommy.
Yeah, I definitely think if there's a physical issue, Khachanov is not a player that you want to come up against in your next match, and that's going to give Khachanov like basically some relief, given he also came through a 5-set epic and was also pretty close to losing to Sebastian Offner as well, or at least Offner was giving him some real trouble. And actually, I think Khachanov Khachanov was never behind that match, but. Offner gave.
Well, he was behind in the 5th. He was behind by 2 games in the 5th. But actually, that match is a very good example for what you just said, because like Khachanov went down to love in the 5th, and Offner just hit a wall physically completely. Like I think he won maybe 2 or 3 points in the next 6 games,
which
literally
is
couldn't like produce a ground stroke. Yeah, so it was just a good example of that kind of a match where it's like 4.5 hours, and Khachanov is just running around fresh like as a daisy in the last few games, and Offner is just done. So
yeah, I think you tweeted about this match, didn't you, Damien? It was or you mid-tweet Offner, because it was somewhat unfortunate for Offner, because that was a huge opportunity for him. Obviously, he's making his way back up the rankings after some time out, and this has been a decent clay season for him, at least for where his ranking is. Yeah, tough loss maybe for Offner at the end of that, but I think now looking at what we've discussed there, Khachanov is probably looking likely to be Alcaraz's biggest threat in his quarter now.
Possibly. I mean, before Rome, everybody was saying that it's like the most horrible matchup for him and that he can never do anything to Carlos. So I guess, that Rome match definitely shifted our expectations a little bit. Right now, I would take Karen over Tommy, yeah. And then it's Popyrin against who in the other? Popyrin Borges, right? Yeah, so right now I would say Khachanov is probably the most likely to get to the quarters. But, it's all pretty close. That section, well, I can't really say it kind of blew up. It could have been massive, though, because let's imagine Offner wins today and also Fucsovics wins, and then we would have something amazing here. But for now, of course, it didn't really blow up, but the biggest favorite is gone, and it certainly looks a lot more open.
I think we might have to, we will definitely be moving to your favorite section of the draw in a moment, but thoughts on, you've mentioned Popyrin, so we'll just quickly go over. He beats Tabio in the straight sets, which I didn't see coming, given Popyrin's poor record. Well, not poor, but not great record at Roland Garros up to now. I get that Tabio is a very up and down player, but I did think that maybe it was 3 pretty close sets. I did catch the end of it, and Tabio did look like he might be in contention for the 3rd, but definitely a good run from Popyrin. But I do feel like Borges might be some trouble for him.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it's all very similar level players, I suppose. Popyrin's poor record at the RGA, it was kind of surprising to me when I saw it, for sure. I think he maybe won a match years ago and then didn't win another one for 5 or something like that. So yeah, getting 2 wins here. I kind of forgot about this match, to be honest, today. I wasn't even sure. Like, if you,
it's one of the. I've put it in my. I've categorized all the matches. And I've just put the other section. Like, we'll just skim over it.
Yes, yeah, sort of like that. Like, if you ask me, I would say, yeah, Popyrin won it, but I wasn't even sure if in 3 or 4. So that tells you how much I paid attention. But yeah, to me, he was the favorite. Again, poor record at the French, but he's solid on clay, very similar to Kokinakis, and like, the same strengths really, and then that's why their games apply. But yeah, right now he should like his chances to, fight for these next few spots. But it's all super close in that section now.
Yeah, it's super close. Also super close section is, well, your favorite section of the draw, which is looking a bit odd to me, because you've got a couple of guys who were seeded who were in the third round, who we didn't think, we thought there was a good chance might not make it that far. And then we've got a couple of other guys in the third round who we were really hoping would get that far and set up a really interesting scenario. So I guess let's start with Daniel Altmaier winning against Vit Capriva in 4, and that looked like that one was pretty competitive from watching the live scores.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at the breakpoint conversion stats, 2 out of 19 for Kopšiva and 5 out of 6 for Altmaier. Partially, it's like a little misleading because in the second set, Kopšiva won it 6-4. He never faced a breakpoint and he had like 8, converted 1. But, these don't matter, right? He still took the set. But the fourth set, obviously, was where the story was really on. 4 different games, I think he had chances, including 1 set point. Never took him, and then Altmaier just takes over after like this great point where he chases down shots that are impossible to chase down. Jake was asking about the trademark backhand drop shot. I actually liked it because Altmaier played a very similar one to like in Kopšiva's technique once, and was like a bit of a tongue-in-cheek play. I don't know if he actually meant it like that, but it was exactly that technique that Kopšiva always uses. And yeah, it was a very entertaining match for sure. Could have gone 5, should have gone 5 probably. But I still liked how Altmaier like followed up that Fritz win. It was a big one for him. It's obviously not that easy. Different opponent as well. But a lot of what he showed today and 2 days ago is very applicable to the Medvedev matchup as well, and like neutralizing the power of the opponent.
Yeah. And we know he's very effective at Roland Garros. So in the past, I'm interested to see how he matches up with Hamad Medvedev. Sorry, I've butchered that. But who came through against Juanma Cerundolo. Not surprised at all about that result. Especially like having seen Medvedev, like this does seem to be his big chance. So thoughts on his win over Cerundolo and his prospects against Altmaier?
Yeah, I mean, he has so much brutal, like raw power that Juanma didn't really manage to keep up with it. Of course, there was a bit of like, let's say, the last few games in the third set, he starts smashing his racket, just totally losing his cool. It's a Medvedev match after all. It has to happen at some point. Also, like drastically just overplaying the drop shot all the time. Yeah, I just don't know if he's going to be able to get away with all this stuff against Altmaier. It seems like that's a match where he will be punished for this. Let's just say that. And yeah, maybe he just comes out and performs much better. Who knows? But nonetheless, it's a big run for him already. I mean, he had no Grand Slam major wins going into this event. Best of 5 format. We still don't know how he's going to handle it because he only played 3 set matches thus far. And he was looking fine, I guess. Also today, of course, was pretty rainy at first. So the conditions were really heavy. That definitely was making it a little better for Cerundolo. So to survive that in 3 is also pretty nice. And yeah, Medvedev Altmaier, he has to be a little more on point, that's for sure. He literally cannot afford to just mess around like he did in the previous 2 rounds and wasn't punished for it. If he does, I still think he can definitely win this. And in either of them, against Tiafoe or Korda, the chance is there. And the chance for my quarterfinal prediction to be right is definitely there. It's just 2 matches. That's really all I want this week, How about Medvedev in the quarterfinals of Roland Garros?
I have never wanted someone else's prediction to be right more than yours, Damien.
Thank you.
Because I want to see a breakthrough. And like Medjedovic has been a young talent that's been on the trying to push through injuries, not helped him with that. And I know that obviously he's someone that you are a big fan of. Well, fan as in like admirer of his game and his prospects. And having watched him, I can see absolutely why. Like, I completely agree. He's got a lot of potential. And I'm interested to see. Having said that, I think Daniel Altmaier would be a very acceptable alternative if he didn't, if it wasn't him.
He's already been there, you know. He's kind of like the guy who already has done it, and maybe that's why it would be a little less exciting. Maybe the ceiling isn't quite as good, but he would be like the logical quarterfinalist out of this.
Still more interesting than Tiafoe or Korda, who both came through in straight sets today pretty straightforwardly. So there's not much to really comment on those matches. Maybe I thought PCB might put up a little bit more of a fight for Tiafoe, or Tiafoe would, go nowhere for a bit. But that didn't seem to happen. So they're both through, and they've set up a seeded third round, which I don't think anyone was really expecting.
Yeah, I think Darderi especially was the threat to Korda, but then Darderi was also not fit in that match. And after that, you can start imagining it for sure. I mean, Frances, if somebody thought he was losing, it was probably going to be against Comesaña, who just like completely blew the match against Carreño Busta. Having watched a lot of Pablo matches this clay season, I didn't really trust him physically at all. Fran didn't test it whatsoever. And Frances, I guess he just overwhelmed them completely. Yeah, Brooksby also not a problem for Korda, clearly on clay. So, yeah, that's the part of that like whole section, not the 4 players or like whatever. But as a whole, like that's the part that's been a little boring thus far, like with absolutely no memorable matches. Maybe Tiafoe Korda is going to be the one that kind of like starts delivering for us.
It could be an interesting one. 2 Americans with something to prove in that. I'd quite like to see Tiafoe coming through it. I mean, I have a soft spot for Tiafoe anyway. So, I would be interested to see if he made a Roland Garros quarterfinal, that would be quite an interesting situation, because then it's like, okay, Tiafoe's made another deep run kind of out of nowhere, which he sometimes does. We'll talk about more exciting things then. So the other 2 matches that had some kind of interest today, you kind of mentioned one of them, which is Giovanni Ampezzi Perricard losing to Demir Junher. That was that. Unfortunately, the French crowd couldn't get him through that one. But nice to see Junher making another sort of run.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I loved the Junher performance. It was a masterclass. You have such an extreme power contrast, so he has to like be really focused to navigate it. Obviously, he has a lot of tools, like the variety, the touch, the speed around the court, and for him to kind of just like come in and play so locked in, it's so different to his usual performances, because usually you're just gonna see him arguing with the umpire about 200 different things. And today he was just in business mode. There's this point in the opening set tiebreak where he lets Giovanni Ampezzi Perricard lob go, and he sees that it's like very close, and the umpire has to come down and check the mark, and he just says nothing. He accepts the decision. That's not the Damir Junher I know. Usually, whenever I watch him, especially in person, I'm just like, oh my, are you really going to be arguing after every single point? And it happens every time. I'm just, I cannot believe that it's possible that on the second point, he can already find something to talk about with the umpire. But not today. Yeah, it was business mode. There was only one thing that obviously happened in that match, or like, let's say a combination of things over 30 minutes, where suddenly Ampezzi Perricard plays 4 amazing games from 2-4 in the third, and then Junher has that fall. And it looks pretty serious, but when he's struggling with it for like the next 15 minutes, Gio doesn't really do much to like punish it. He played like 1 drop shot, maybe additional, that I feel like he usually doesn't. But after that, Junher just starts moving fine again, and I think he played the matchup like tactically so well, and good for him to be in the third round of a slam for the first time in 7 years.
Yeah. I did think, good grief, it's been a while for him. So, yeah, really good going for Jumeau. So, yeah, that's exciting prospect for him.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the David Juhur I know. And today there was none of that guy. He was like so focused on the match and on the strategy.
Do you think he'll stay focused in the next match?
I don't think it matters. You know, I wasn't even trying to say my usual catchphrase, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it does. It's a pretty fun matchup, I can imagine. You know, just Jumhur against anybody is the same kind of like Mute or Gaston. Like they just have games unique enough that you never really know how a match is going to look. But over the longer format, I just can't see him winning 3 sets against Carlos. I can't see him winning 2 sets against Carlos, to be honest. So, yeah, I just think the life of Alcaraz is easier now because Mpechi Pericard, at least there's always a chance that he like gets through a set just by serve botting, and with Jumhur, yeah, not enough of that.
Definitely not enough. Yeah, there won't be a lot of that happening in that match. And then the only other match I think is worth kind of spending a bit of time on is Quentin Halys coming through in 4 sets against Miomir Kecmanovic. Pretty tight scoreline ish, 4-6, 6-3, 7-6, 7-5. Halys makes the 3rd round of the French. That's obviously going to be big for him, big for French media, hyping up whoever they can. Also potentially big for the Birmingham Challenger because he's actually supposed to be the top seed there. And he's in the 3rd round of singles and the 2nd round of doubles. But Rune might be a bit of a different prospect for him in the 3rd round. But thoughts on Halys's win against Kecmanovic? That was still a good one.
Led Rune 2-0 against at Wimbledon last year.
True.
Of course, at Wimbledon. But yeah, for him to make the 3rd round of a French is great. 22 aces today, like 80-something winners. You know, he played the Quentin Halys style. It was working perfectly. I did think, especially because today was going to be a bit slower, that's going to be a problem maybe. But no, he just like straight up hit through Miomir fine. What is Halys like on grass? Yeah, back-to-back Wimbledon 3rd rounds the last couple of years. I think he was both years, actually. He was even much more dangerous than that. Had that lead against Rune last year. Also in 2023, he took a set of Sinner and was looking to me like maybe a player who in another section can make, I don't know, Safiullin made the quarters that year. So like Halys easily could have been Safiullin that year, I think, if he was in another part of the draw. So it's pretty amazing on anything that's quick. And for him to make a 3rd round at the French, that's definitely a big step forward. I mean, he's going to have a new career high of like 46, 7, 8. We'll see. So that's another nice thing before he starts dropping all the big points at Wimbledon and then Gstaad.
Well, we'll see how it happens with that. Yeah, isn't Holger Rune due a big 5-set epic at some point in the French Open draw? It's around about now that usually happens.
Would be good for him if it doesn't happen until the 4th round, I would say, because Musetti is going to be difficult.
Yeah, and it's Musetti's looking in very good form, by the way, because he got through Galan with no problem today, straight sets, and still looking like heavy favourite to make it through to the next phase. And then the only other match that happened was Mariano Navone making the 3rd round, beating Riley Opelka in straight sets. So not much to really say about that match, I don't think. But yeah, that's your men's tour wrapped up. Men's side wrapped up. Any thoughts you want to air out, Damien, before we head to the women's?
Not really. I think we can switch now, yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, the obviously the most hyped match of the women's draw was Iga Swiatek against Emma Raducanu. And I've already seen some questions in the chat from Jake about it. But in the end, there wasn't anything Emma could do against Iga on clay because Iga won 6-1, 6-2 in about an hour and 20 minutes. It certainly wasn't a domination in that it wasn't done in under an hour. But watching that match, there was there was just this sense that like Emma was doing her best and she was winning the odd point, and making life difficult occasionally. But Iga had the tools to overwhelm her on clay, and that was pretty clear from that match, and was probably the most likely outcome of that match, to be honest.
I think it was like the only outcome, really. Yeah. Emma probably needs something a little quicker, a little lighter to just have a chance at not getting pushed too far behind the baseline. Just, all her assets getting mitigated because Swiatek hit such a hard, heavy ball. Also not a matchup where like Iga is still going to be like struggling to keep it in the court, or, is just going to be forced to ball bash. No, not really either. Emma doesn't have like the same kind of like quality on her strokes. I think she definitely has to be a little bit more proactive and here she's just not going to be able to. Stuttgart, their matches were pretty close, that's sleeker indoor clay, but Indian Wells, Australia this year, Roland Garros, was this more competitive than the Australian Open match? I suppose, but that wasn't a tough bar to clear. And yeah, I mean, to me, this was really the only outcome possible in this one. Emma, like I saw some comments that like, Emma is rounding into form and Iga is still looking for it, but there are still levels to it. If Emma is rounding up into clay form and Iga is looking for it, it's still a massive gap. And yeah, I'm not saying that I'm like super sold on the fact that Iga is fully back and that she's just going to win the tournament from here. But if she's going to lose, it has to be to someone who can threaten her in different ways than Emma.
Yeah, agreed. And, speaking of someone who could potentially, speaking of that, do we see that happening in her next opponent, which is Jacqueline Christian, came through today against Sarah Bayek in 3. I was a little bit disappointed because I was hoping that Bayek would win that one, but Christian still... pretty decent top 100, top 50 player. I don't think they've played before, Swiatek and Christian. I'm pretty certain they haven't. But yeah, thoughts on that matchup, Damien?
I mean, it's probably a little more difficult. Just plays a bit of a heavier ball. Definitely a pretty high ceiling player too. Like I think Rusa and Christian, they can kind of be compared. That like even when their ranking falls behind 100, or I think Christian right now is probably about 70 or something like that. But even when they were falling outside of the top 100, they were still difficult. Like they were still, players who can potentially produce an upset like that. But Iga, the French, I still think it's going to take a little bit more. Of course, that little bit more might not be too far into the future. She has Ostapenko or Rybakina in her 4th round. So there's going to be like a pretty massive jump up in the quality of competition. I would say Christian probably gets a few more games. Like probably is going to be a little bit more like Shramkova than Raducanu. But yeah, I still would say that this isn't really a difficult match. Like if you guys struggling there, that doesn't bode well for the future for her future in this tournament.
I would agree with that. I think Iga's. I think I could see Iga going down an early break as if Christian comes out firing and sort of everything sort of hits its spots and Iga has to adjust. But I struggle to see Christian on most days struggling to maintain the consistency through a full match to do that. And I think Iga is just a heavier player. I think Christian, when she comes up against a player who's kind of on in any way, shape or form, will usually come off second best. There is that sort of 1% chance, 5%, 10% chance that Christian redlines and wins it. But I think that's the only scenario where that happens, especially since Iga does seem quite comfortable in these Roland Garros conditions against the field. We will see what happens when she gets that fourth round. I think you and I are pretty confident that's going to happen. And that is the ultimate test of where she is actually at, but we'll cover that when we get there. But yeah, that's how I kind of see this one playing out. Maybe a bit of early trouble, but Iga figures it out.
I would have been a bit more interested in Iga playing Sarah Bayek, because it kind of would have been like if Ayala had good clay footwork. And, Swiatek really struggled against Ayala in Madrid. even though that, technically really shouldn't have happened if you just think about their games. And of course, she lost to her in Miami, but, that's hardcore. I guess that's more acceptable. But yeah, I think that would have been a little bit more interesting, because that would be a match where you're like thinking, maybe if Iga doesn't start well, maybe she just starts making all these errors and basically trying to force the point to end too early. Whereas Christian just has a more, usual regular game. Like there's nothing that she can't throw a curveball at Iga, and you probably need to do it a little bit at least to get her into that panic mode she's been in recently.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I was interested to see what kind of challenges Bayek could give Iga to overcome, and also I'm just keen on seeing young guns kind of breaking through happening, which is probably some of the other stories of the tournament which we will get to. So moving on from Iga Swiatek, let's talk about I guess we'll just kind of rattle through the other top players, because all of them, unlike in the men's draw, the main sort of contenders of this section, this half of the draw, kind of got through pretty simply enough. Sabalenka, Taipan had a great start, and then Sabalenka crushed her from there. Zhang Qinwen, bit of back and forth on Arango, but ultimately came through that without too much trouble. And Paolini, just straightforward win against Aya Tomjanovic. In that, any thoughts on any of those three matches, Damien?
Yeah, I will just say, Nurlan, I mean, I haven't said anything on the contrary to what you just wrote, but I would also agree with Jake that it's both. Like, you throw Emma today against Sabalenka or Goff, and I think the same happens. It's not purely a matchup issue, but yeah, I mean, I haven't really said anything to contradict what you wrote. Yeah, so you mentioned Paolini, Sabalenka, and
Zheng.
Oh, Zheng, yeah. Yeah, Zheng was also another player where I kind of just slept through her match more or less, because it didn't feel to me like she would struggle. However, she has Victoria Mboko in the next round, and that's the one I was really excited already when we saw the draw. And of course, Mboko had to be like placed in it, I think, coming from the qualifying. But then she maybe would have to go through Peyton Stearns to see Kinven. That didn't happen. And now, I mean, the story I think is just amazing. So obviously 42-5 for the season, I think the Canadian is, and I think she will be the first big test for Kinven for sure. I mean, I've said this pretty stupid comparison on the stream a couple of days ago, but Mboko to me is kind of like Parks if she had margin in her game. Of course, not the same kind of serve, but in terms of just ball striking, pace, I love that we finally have a player like this who also should be able to do this consistently. In fact, is already doing this consistently. The other matches she played against like top players, Goff, Badosa, they've been, well, okay, Goff only one set, but against Badosa it was super close. I think this is going to be an absolute cracker, probably my favorite matchup of the third round. I guess we only know half the matchups so far. But yeah, I mean, I think it's still going to be my favorite matchup of the third round, regardless of what we see set up for the next day, for Saturday. And yeah, that was kind of like the main story regarding Kinven to me today. As the match itself against Arango, it wasn't that good. Arango, of course, she has that altitude runs and stuff like that. She controls the ball pretty well in conditions like that, but I don't really think she has like enough quality in her ground strokes, especially to keep up with players like this.
No, I thought that would be the case when when that was the result and that was the matchup. I was like, yeah, Zheng's winning that one. So obviously you slept through that match, but did you catch any of Mboko beating Lise? If not, I caught it.
Go for it then. I watched a lot of Mboko's qualifying round and then the Lulu Sun win in the opening round. But today I also kind of just assumed she would probably be through. 11 a.m. was when my favorite section was playing. So what I had on my two screens.
That should have been your priority, absolutely. But I wanted to watch that match because I hadn't seen Mboko play yet, and I'd seen a lot of hype around her. It was just always like she was always playing when I couldn't watch. But now I could, so I could have that on. And I agree with everything you're saying. Like, there's this high margin, controlled aggression from her that I'm really impressed that she has as an 18-year-old. Like everything's so kind of clean in the way that she hits it. There's also a bit of variety. She was drop shotting and slicing quite a fair bit on the backhand, feeling like she needed to. So you can say that's that versatility that's coming forth from the clay service. I will say that Lise put up a heck of a fight. She counterpunched really well as she does. She broke back several times. It was 6-4, 6-4, but there was a lot of back and forth. And it was a good match for Mboko to come through and kind of be a little bit tested, especially since there's going to be a lot more power coming at her from Zheng Wen. So that was kind of how I saw it. But yeah, I'm very impressed with how well-rounded Mboko's game is at this point in her career. It's kind of I'm gonna make this comparison, given although one is way more hyped than the other, but she feels to me a bit like the João Fonseca of the WTA tour, like in terms of she's kind of come through like with this more or less well-rounded game. Like João has a lot of very aggressive play. That's their first thought, and there's a lot of hype behind both, even though they're both already 18. So that's kind of how
because the best youngster is Andreeva, but like obviously that's not a similar game to Fonseca. So
No,
like
and
if you were looking for a Fonseca on the WTA tour, I guess Mboko is the way to go. Yeah.
And Andreeva's already kind of made that top 10 breakthrough, whereas we're waiting for that to happen with João. So yeah, similar games, similar trajectories, similar ages. I'd say that's probably the closer comparison. But yeah, so I guess looking at that, hopefully that's enough of a breakdown for those who maybe haven't seen Mboko yet, in terms of how she plays and how she came through today. So we're expecting Mboko to be a big test for Zheng. I think that is one of the most exciting matches from this half of the draw to happen. And I think that it's hard to call because obviously Mboko's had, as you've mentioned, these two really close one really close match with Badosa in Miami that she narrowly lost, and took a set off Goff in Rome. So I think a lot of this match is going to be how Zheng handles the challenge of Mboko coming for it, because Mboko's going to play without fear. And I think in some ways that's probably what's going to be the decider of it. Is Zheng going to tap into her experience and find a way through it, or is she going to find it difficult with someone giving it as much of a challenge?
I think I might have gone for Mboko in my bracket. I have to check, but I think I might have.
Okay, Damien's double checking his bracket. I didn't do one this time, so but
yeah, I also had Diana Schneider in my semifinals, so don't listen to me.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know where I would have, if I'd done a bracket, would I've I probably would have picked Zheng, just because she is a top 8 player. She's the Olympic champion. She had that Rome run, which probably helps her case a little bit. And I guess if I have to make a call, I probably lean that way, that Zheng comes through it in the end. But it will probably go 3, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have much to add. I mean, it's a fantastic matchup. Definitely expecting some fireworks from there. And Ghosty says the Jastremska win. Yes, indeed. So that's my semifinal, quarterfinal pick gone. I don't remember quite far, but yeah, I had it far anyway.
It was 2 close sets though. It was 7-5, 7-5, I think. So it was the kind of match that you would expect from those two to have. There was a lot of big ball striking, but Jastremska was hitting through the court a lot better than Schneider was able to, which surprised me a little bit. But this is definitely Jastremska is definitely more consistently getting through to the midpoint of Grand Slams now, which is good for her. So
yeah, I mean, in Australia there was that whole story. She could have fallen out of the top 100. Of course, her ranking was like almost only the semifinals from 2024. But already kind of tells you a lot, right? I mean, she is capable of a run like that again, but she's also capable of losing to pretty much anybody. Today was definitely one of the big days, and good for her.
I'm very interested to see who comes through that fourth round match. She's going to with third round match. She set up with Ludmila Samsonova, who came through Romero Gomez pretty easily. No point in really dwelling on that match. It was a really easy win for Samsonova, but I'm curious to see which of those comes through that match, especially since Samsonova recently got to the Strasbourg final. But part of me wonders whether Yastremska might be on a bit of a run here.
Yeah, it might be difficult to watch. I mean, I can just imagine, having absolutely no rhythm and both players just blasting the ball into oblivion. So,
speaking of blasting the ball into oblivion, Elena Ostapenko has successfully come through a round 2 match, the first couple of rounds of Roland Garros for the first time since she won it. I think maybe since she won it, it's definitely not happened very often. And comes from a set down against Caroline Dahlheide, who was making it tricky for her. It was a fair bit of battle, kind of a break midway through the third set decided the match in Ostapenko's favour. But yeah, she's definitely seems to be a lot more motivated at the moment, Ostapenko, to make her way through those draws. Similar thing in obviously Stuttgart winning it and then Rome. So she seems to be a little bit more consistent, interestingly enough, especially compared to the start of the year.
Sure. There were patches like last year when she was definitely doing so well in almost every single event. This year, of course, for a while, there was that big story where in the events that she plays Iga Świątek, she was like, whatever, 10-1. And in the events that she doesn't, she was like 0-6. I actually didn't know she didn't have a single Roland Garros run since. I definitely remember her losing to Kozlova in the title defense. Of course, she had some at the other slams, so I guess that's why maybe it didn't stick out that much. But yeah, with Ostapenko, we just know that right now she's going to have some big matches ahead. If she beats Rybakina, it's very likely Świątek. So I don't think the fact that she struggled much in the first 2 rounds is important at all. It's Ostapenko. She's going to come out firing for a big match, very likely. And especially if she plays Iga, she's going to come out firing. So it's more about getting to that third round for sure. And now let's see the Ostapenko match, the Rybakina matchup. I think it's like 3-2 between them. So pretty close.
I'm fact checking myself here. And this is the second time Ostapenko has made the third round since she won it. That was 2020. She went out in the third round. So it's and that was obviously a very different Roland Garros then. So Ostapenko is playing Elena Rybakina in the next round. Rybakina coming through pretty straightforwardly against Iva Jovic today, kind of the mini Rybakina. It did very much look like Jovic was fighting well, but it was very clear that she has some clear development to go through before she gets to Rybakina's level. Still showed some promise, and in the way that she was kind of rallying with Rybakina, not showing a lot of fear, but that experience and quality difference, Rybakina had an advantage in that, and it's something that Jovic will develop into. I'm kind of filling this in because I'm assuming you didn't watch this match, Damien. But you can correct me if I'm wrong there. But thoughts on this potential Rybakina Ostapenko matchup? We have the head-to-head on the screen. It's 3-2 Rybakina. So yet again, battle of the big hitters, and it's fairly even, like a lot of other Rybakina's other matchups with big hitters.
Yeah, Ostapenko tends to be pretty good against the other big hitters sometimes, but then again, she also has a few head-to-heads that are different. I guess Rybakina also struggles with like Samsonova. So it's all weird. I mean, it's obviously also another contest of like who gets to top the proceedings, who gets to be first to attack, really. So that could really go both ways. I'm really not sure. I think it's obvious that for Iga it would be better if Rybakina pulled through. But I have no idea who's going to win this. I think the last 3 matches were won by Elena, but it just all seems very unclear. With Sabalenka, like, for example, Ostapenko had a horrible head-to-head, right? And then we see their Stuttgart final, which is like what, hour 15 for her, and so easy. So at this point, I really don't know.
This for me is the other match that kind of rivals best match of the top half with.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm very interested to see. It's so difficult to call this one. It could go either way. Like Raducanu seems to have got some form back, winning Strasbourg, coming through her opening rounds relatively okay, and Ostapenko being Ostapenko. I think it's all going to come down to, I'm being tongue-in-cheek when I say this, Ostapenko, how motivated Ostapenko is to play Iga Swiatek again. But there's also an element of like, sometimes when she runs into the first tough player, she's not able to make it. And that's what happened to her in Rome against Paolini. So I think at the moment, and like neither of them is a good option for Iga, to be honest, because Iga has historical troubles with Raducanu in the matchup. And especially if Milena is getting some confidence back. I'm going to lean towards Raducanu for the reasons I put forward, and that maybe she's got slightly more momentum than Jelena Ostapenko. But the trouble is, trying to predict anything to do with Jelena Ostapenko is borderline impossible. So reason will go out the window probably as soon as she serves her first ball.
Yeah, I'd kind of love to see another Ostapenko-Świątek, especially as here it would be just like a make or break scenario, like to the fullest extent, right? For Iga, the Roland Garros win streak, which is now at 23, will be at 24 if she beats Christian, and Ostapenko the 0-6 head-to-head. Like for this story, I don't know, I just feel tempted to think that Ostapenko might do it. Rybakina, is she gonna be in the Strasbourg form, or is it going to be more of a bother that she's coming off that and a little tired probably? I don't know. I only watched her first round and that was a mess, but also a very different opponent, of course, to somebody like Ostapenko or even Ivajovic, who she played today. So I don't know. And Yo, to your questions about Iga and Emma, I think Jake just answered you very well here, and that's really it. Like if they were playing on something quicker, slicker, I think Emma would be attacking the forehand, but I don't really know what she, what sort of tools she would have to use to do it today.
So yeah, well, we know that Raducanu and Ostapenko have the tools to attack the Iga Swiatek forehand. She's not going to be looking forward to that fourth round, whoever it is. I do think that I'm going to say this: if Iga plays Ostapenko and she wins, I think she might win Roland Garros. Because that might make it big.
If Swiatek beats Ostapenko?
If she beat Ostapenko, if she plays and beats Ostapenko, I think she wins Roland Garros.
Could be. I think either Andreeva or Goff would still be like a pretty difficult opponent in the final, but maybe I would say that like her path to the final would suddenly be like, pretty nice. And we still haven't had like enough time to properly judge, the effect of training at Roland Garros for the past 2 weeks for Iga. But yeah, if she does that, obviously it would be a massive mental boost.
Very quick to rule out Sabalenka, who, as I mentioned earlier, came through relatively comfortably, but that would be a potential semi-final opponent.
Today, I mean, not a much, really. I'm a little more excited for her playing Danilovic. I don't know if it's just like, my bias, because as you said earlier, that who was it that you said you had a soft spot for? Tiafoe. I have a soft spot for Danilovic for sure, and maybe it's just that bias that is making me think this doesn't have to be easy. But of course, it's also, I don't know, she's been a winning machine this year. If she just like comes out in her best shape, there's not much that Olga can do, and there's not much that almost anybody can do. So yeah, after 2 rounds, we also don't really, we didn't have enough really data to change our opinions on Arena in any way. Statistically, percentage-wise, she's probably still the tournament favorite, but it's a group of players rather than a singular threat at the top. So she's done her job in the first 2 rounds, and the matches were absolutely non-memorable.
I am impressed of how comfortably she's come through those first 2 rounds. I will say that she is playing like she is the official favorite, and she's playing like number one right
Like
now.
she's Iga Swiatek in the last few years, basically.
Yeah, basically. Danilovic, I also have a soft spot for her as well. I do like the way she plays, I like the way she fights, and boy, did she fight against Danielle Collins today. That was a fun 3-set match to watch. There was a lot of shouting and a lot of big hitting, and I think because Danilovic has a little bit more variety and get under the ball a bit easier, I think that's what's made the difference for her in these two Roland Garros 3-setters they've played. I think, but yeah, Danilovic is a lot of fun to watch, especially on clay. And I'm interested to see what she can do against Aryna Sabalenka. Definitely the match against Collins was probably the match of the women's tournament so far, or is probably my favorite one so far. But yeah, 1-0 Sabalenka head to head. Probably too few matches to really go off on that one. Madrid qualifying in 2018. So both of them have moved on quite a bit since then, especially since Danilovic was seeded in qualifying and Sabalenka was not.
Yeah, Danilovic won a WTA Tour title in 2018, I think. So that was kind of crazy. Of course, her career path is up and down, but yeah, right now, finally, she's realizing her potential. For the sake of their relationship, I also hope that Jan Oblak has something hard for Danilovic as well.
Moving on.
Yeah, the reaction of the producer killed me. I wasn't gonna laugh, but
moving on.
The reaction of the producer was very good on backstage.
First, big deciding set tiebreak of the women's draw. Bernarda Pera knocked out Donna Vekic in that match. Kind of good result for Pera. Didn't have her going this far. Kind of showing how up and down Donna Vekic's season is, really. But good result for Pera. Vekic still maybe searching for a little bit of form at the moment. That's probably the other interesting match there. Thoughts on that result, Damien?
Yeah, Bernarda Pera, I have a lot of respect for on clay for sure. Plays with a lot of like heavy lefty topspin. Why not? Once I famously thought that she was gonna be a big threat to Iga Swiatek, then she lost in like 60 minutes. But fair play to her. Vekic, I wasn't really thinking of like too seriously. What was the section that Vekic was in?
I think she was in. Hang on, let me have a look. I've got it up. I think she was in the Swiatek Paolini section. Yes, she was.
But then who was she going to play in the third round?
Oh, third round. Good point. I don't have the draw open.
I remember chatting to somebody about this in one of the last ball drops show, and I'm like, I can't remember now. But basically, somebody was suggesting that Vekic might be dangerous, and I was just thinking, let's see her, get there first. I was just not too. Oh yes, Svitolina, yeah. So that's a threat out of the Svitolina draw. Yeah, that's well. I was thinking Vekic is probably not as dangerous to Svitolina as the other guy, whoever I was chatting to. I don't even remember at this point.
Yeah, Svitolina was definitely more of a threat. So she's in the Paolini. She was in the Paolini eighth. Svitolina, by the way, coming through in 2 tough sets against Anna Bondar. Really had to fight her way through that one. I caught the end of that match. She looked very, very pleased to come through that. Bondar put up a heck of a fight. But Svitolina still is the WTA player with the most main tour wins on clay at the moment. One more than everyone else, which is what's making her kind of a dark horse for me at this Roland Garros. But obviously,
I'd like to say on the ATP it's the same. The dark horse is the guy who's won the most clay matches, but unfortunately, that's not possible anymore.
No, unfortunately not. That is Mr. Alcaraz.
Well, it's actually not Alcaraz. It's Fran Cerundo.
Oh, yeah. Cerundo and Svitolina are probably in similar categories. Let's not talk about that.
Yes, too much is for Chang today, Jake, because the lucky losers and the qualifiers are also getting to play today due to all the mess with the weather in Little Rock. Yeah,
That's Little Rock Challenger. All right. I'm going to, there's 3 more results. I'm just going to rattle off what they are. Notice you can comment on them if you want, but Starodubtseva beat Potapova relatively straightforwardly, and then definite straightforward wins for Anisimova over Golubic. And Towson beat Rus in straights, but it was a bit of a tough 2-setter for Towson. But I'm very excited by that. That's the 3rd really good match that it sets up between Towson and Anisimova in round 3. Winner probably playing Sabalenka. And I'm very interested to see who kind of comes through that one, because both have proven themselves to be a real challenge for Sabalenka in recent history. Let's face it, they both also play a fun brand of tennis, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. I'm probably leaning Anisimova for that one, given how strong she's looking, though.
Yeah, I think I picked Anisimova to beat Towson and to beat Sabalenka, but yeah. I mean, obviously, it's just like, it's just some fun with brackets, but she has a very good record against Arina. Clara also pushed her hard this year, beat her once. So yeah, I think both of them are definitely issues for Arina.
Yeah, I think that's but they're going to have a fun match against each other first to determine it. It's a bit like the determining to see who plays Swiatek.
Yeah, I was a little too bold when I said Mboko Zheng was like the best match of all time, best match of the 3rd round for sure. Because Anisimova, Towson, and Rybakina, Ostapenko, that's the same level, really. So, all we've learned over the last 20, 30 minutes is that the 3rd round in this half of the draw is going to be very exciting in the women's draw. Less so on the men's.
Less so on the men's. I think there's only a couple of matches that are really eye-catching in the same way there. But fortunately, we don't have to worry about that, because it's day 5 tomorrow. I'm not necessarily going to do we're not necessarily going to do a full preview of like what's happening. We've obviously got some other match previews out there, but Damien, what's your watch schedule going to be like for tomorrow? Which matches are you going to be paying the most attention to?
Yeah, I realized you were going to ask this question like 10 seconds ago, and I'm still pulling out the schedule.
Well, I'll tell you what, a match that I'm very intrigued to see the outcome of, because it's two youngish guys, is Rocha Menchik. I haven't seen Rocha play yet, but I know how good Menchik is and how well he's playing at the moment. But I'm interested to see the outcome of that one.
Oh, I definitely want to watch Cobolli Arnaldi. Very similarly ranked, very similar like upside, floor. I think almost everything. No idea who's the favorite there. I think they have like 4 matches maybe, but some of them a few years ago, and it's 3-1 for Matteo. I love that one for sure. Misolic, I want to see if he beats Shapo. He's had an incredible clay season. Before the event, I definitely thought he was going to make the 3rd round, but now Shapo had some apparently incredible performance against Martinez. That's what people told me. I didn't watch it. And I suppose from like the main line of matches that we have on the men's side, the mainstream things, actually Mute Djokovic, like just for the sake of Mute being Mute.
I've got that down as well. Literally, yeah, I want to see how Mute can irritate Djokovic. Also, Cobolli Arnaldi, I did see that and I went, oh yes, because that can go either way. I'm definitely interested in seeing how that one goes. Probably will catch it if I can. I know my mother is going to be very interested in Sinner versus Gasquet, because Gasquet was one of her favorite players. And so she'll probably want to check out that last match if she's not working.
Poor mom, because that's not going to be... Yeah,
that's a rough end to your career.
Yeah, like if he gets like 6 games, I think that's already treated as a win.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not going to be super competitive. What I am expecting to be competitive is Azarenka Kenin. I think that could be quite scrappy. I'm interested to see if Katie Bolter can stand up to Madison Keys anyway. And Krejcikova Kudermetova is going to be a mess, and I'm here for it. Valentova, I want to watch her match against Goff more, because I'm interested to see how she plays, because I'm obviously junior champion last year qualifying. And then the night match, Monfils Draper. I'm I know that we're probably not necessarily that big on Monfils being that much of a threat to Draper, but hey, Monfils on Philippe Chatrier at night seems to work miracles. So I'm not ruling that out. So yeah, those are the matches I'm probably going to be paying the most attention to.
Yeah, Rusa Badosa was amazing at the US Open. I guess I'm not expecting it to be this time, but for the sake of the chance that it might be just as good, I might turn it on. Monfils Draper, I just don't think it's gonna be competitive. And Gasquet Sinner, yeah, I mean,
no, that's more of a fair. That's kind of an exhibition match for both players. Let's be honest.
It kind of is, yeah. And I just hope it's not like a massive beatdown where he wins 1 or 2 games. Obviously, that would kind of just steal the whole. It would just ruin the whole story, because he got a win, and that's already big. And then if in that last match it's like a 6-1, 6-love, 6-love, that would kind of ruin it and just make the whole farewell. Yeah, I don't know. Yannick would also feel very weird about doing this to him. But is he the kind of guy who's like gonna slow it down a little bit? I don't think so. I think he's just gonna come out and play his game.
He wasn't generous enough to give Artur Rinderknecht a set, so probably not.
Yeah. I mean, he also didn't have the incentive. This time it would be like, it's the guy's last match. Yeah, I don't know. I just hope it's not the worst scoreline, the worst scenario possible. But I also don't really see how Gasquet wins anything in that match.
Well, let's see how that one plays out. So it's some intriguing matches tomorrow. There will be a watch along between to start the day with Mira Andreeva and Aisling Kruger. I am intrigued to see if Aisling can challenge Andreeva in any way in that match. Not sure who's covering it, but you can come back. You can wake up and join us for that one if you want. I think it should be relatively interesting. And then we've also got another last ball drops happening after the conclusion of Monfils Draper. However, whether it goes up towards my optimistic way or Damien's pessimistic way, we'll be there to kind of give you the reaction to it. And as Dave says, Fonseca is happening tomorrow as well, which is very, very exciting.
Sorry to Jake for not saying anything about Azarenka. Funny enough, today, Jake, I will tell you this. I don't know how I'm going to tell everybody this on the stream and everything, but today on the toilet, I was looking through Victoria Azarenka's 2012 season. So maybe at least you can, have some fun with that. It was a great one. Obviously, I think Serena won more titles, but she finished number 1. There was this in the first 6 months, I think she played Radwanska 6 or 7 times and demolished her every single time. So I was looking through it, and it was an interesting look back into the past days of women's tennis. Sharapova, she was also crashing until losing to her in the WTA finals semi, I believe. So yeah, it was pretty fun. Of course, Serena kind of the only player that she wasn't able to touch, but still finished number 1. She did lose to Bartoli. Yes, she did lose to Bartoli in something. I don't remember what it was, but definitely.
Miami.
And there were a few withdrawals as well and retirements. I was interested to see that because, of course, now, this year, last few years, it's been a conversation, right? That Azarenka is just doing that all the time. And even in that amazing, best season of her career, I think she had 3 events where she withdraws or retires, and big ones, thousands and stuff like that.
I think Azarenka's 2012 season is probably one of the best seasons any WTA player's ever had, to be honest. Certainly up there. I'm not going to necessarily say top 10, but you're looking at top 20, top 30.
If we include 2 medals at the Olympics, then okay, yeah.
So obviously Serena had an incredible season as well that year. So it kind of, they're kind of competing with each other for the limelight there. But in terms of an individual, pretty impressive, I would think, especially given how she was only really losing to either Serena or Sharapova, apart from the odd blip. So, that's what impressed me about it. There you go. That is all about Azarenka, who is playing tomorrow against Sophia Kenin, and I'm intrigued because that one could go either way. Probably leaning Kenin, but I could see Serena winning that, Vika winning that one. Doing Belarusian mix-up again. It's way too late. Both Damien and I need to sleep. Damien, thanks for being on, and thanks for sharing your honest thoughts about everything as always. Honest and unfiltered.
All I can do is, sit here and just say what I think. And thank you, Nick, as well. I think it's been a while since we had a stream. So definitely good to get back here and secure our places on Mount Rushmore.
I'm looking forward to it, although I think for some reason my face has got smaller because yours is just your face has just expanded on the space. I think Jake's carving it. That's probably why. But it's always fun to do a stream with you, Damien. And excited to see what happens tomorrow. There will be another Last Ball Drops. Won't involve me, but or I'm not sure who else is doing it tomorrow. But
not me. But I think I will be back on Friday. So see you guys then.
Yeah. So there you go. We're taking a break for tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed our stream. I'll see you. We'll both see you soon. In the meantime, take care and keep talking tennis.